Guys, since I guess became acquainted with the day on the Hebrew calendar called Tisha B'Av, and basically started, participating in commemorating that day via fasting and via reading all kinds of texts, lamentations, what have you. I found myself, speaking to Jews, let's say Jews who are not so affiliated or initiated, and they're asking me, like, Tzvi, how are we supposed to connect to this day? Or rather, how are we supposed to connect to something that happened thousands of years ago? We were not present for this, right? And how is this even relevant today? What, we're gonna rebuild this temple, right? And, you get into this whole discussion of like, yeah, we will, and all this kind of back and forth, right? And it doesn't seem real to them, right? It doesn't seem tangible to them. Meaning there's a lot of Orthodox Jews who struggle with such a thing, right? So now you can imagine secular Jews, right? So I've been racking my brain this entire time. How do I, what's a way people can connect to this? Well, my friends, we know that this day in Jewish history has a certain energy to it. We know that a lot of, besides the destruction of the temples, a lot of things happen in, kind of throughout the ages to Jews. It's been a day of calamity. It's been 3 weeks, really, of calamity, but culminating in that day. But even so, guys, you could say, well, okay, what about the Holocaust, right? The Shoah. A lot of these uninitiated Jews can connect to that event, and they, you can mention the whole thing about Auschwitz and the whole thing, how that was planned, or the final solution was finalized. That plan was finalized on Tisha B'Av, right? 1941, I believe. You could go that route with people, right? But even so, guys, it's becoming less and less tangible because, that generation is dying out. You can go to schools today and ask kids whether they're Jewish or not Jewish, what do you know about this event? And a lot of people don't really know, unless they have stuff in their family, unless their parents or their grandparents told them, or their even great-grandparents told them. These kids are not going to connect. And even if they do hear about it, again, it's not anything that's tangible. Folks, what is tangible to us today? Well, what's tangible to us today is one thing, or one place: Gaza. Allow me to take you through a chronology. Late 90s, early 2000s, Ehud Barak, Bill Clinton, before him, I believe, Yitzhak Rabin, but Ehud Barak, Bill Clinton, Yasser Arafat, negotiating, quote-unquote negotiating. How do we achieve so-called peace? The proposal, initially, 98 some odd % of Judea and Samaria to the Palestinian Authority. Possibly the Golan Heights, or part of the Golan Heights, back to Syria. Has v'shalom. Folks, this is 1999. I'm not sure if Gaza was on the table. Okay. Oslo Accords commence, or Oslo Accords were already in effect. This was to be like Oslo 2, right? Yasser Arafat, Baruch Hashem, rejects accepting this plan. So Judea and Samaria was not given to the PA, but what happened shortly after that? The Second Intifada. The Second Intifada included a bevy of terror attacks, like 150-something terror attacks, some larger than others. If you guys remember, the three that come to mind, immediately, for me, the Sparrow Pizzeria bombing in Jerusalem, summer 2001, the Dolphinarium summer 2001, the Dolphinarium Club in Tel Aviv, and March 2002, the Netanya Passover Seder attack in a Netanya hotel. There's a few others, guys. In 2003, I believe, the Maxim restaurant in Haifa, and there's a few others. Some cafes in Jerusalem, Tel Aviv. We can make a whole list, guys. Then, right after that, guys, shockingly enough, the Israeli government pulls Jews out of Gush Katif, and it happened out of Gaza, and happened during the 3 weeks. It culminated on the 10th of Av in the afternoon, but we know that the afternoon or the morning of the 10th of Av is still part of Tisha B'Av, because we say that the temples burn until the 10th of Av, until Chatzot, until midday. You know? So this is the most readily available event to connect the Jewish people to Tisha B'Av, my friends. After that, about a year after that, we had the abduction of Gilad Shalit in 2006, and then 5 years later in 2011, we exchanged him for 1,027 of these orcs, one of whom was Yahya Sinwar, who eventually came to plan what? October 7th, which was the crescendo because of everything that happened after we pulled the Jews out of Gush Katif, right? Because what did we have, folks? We had 18 years of rockets, non-stop rockets, and the Israeli government was happy to, quote-unquote, mitigate this for 18 years with the thing that they called the best thing since refrigeration, the best thing since sliced bread, Iron Dome. Every Hasbarist, every Israel advocacy program, Iron Dome, look at Iron Dome, look at this, being manned by, young kids, 19-year-old girls, Iron Dome, what a feat of technology, folks. It is a feat of technology when it's like, you're fighting a conventional army, or somebody like, from Yemen or Iran launching ballistic missiles, right? But if you're fighting orcs that you gave land that was yours, and they're launching rockets that cost $50 a rocket, and you're intercepting that rocket with an $100,000, every time you're spending $100,000 to intercept something that costs $50, folks, that is, at least economically, that's stupid, right? On top of that, you are de facto, and they have turned your own citizens into demoralized basket cases, my friends. This is what they did. The Israeli government allowed for 18 years. And then it culminated in the horror show of October 7th, which was planned by Yahya Sinwar, who was exchanged for Gilad Shalit, who was on the border of abducted from the border of Gaza. Why? Because Hamas came to Gaza, to power in Gaza, and managed to do what they did. My friends, everything is like directly connected, right? So my friends, based on everything I said, if you're watching this and you're an unaffiliated Jew, or even an affiliated Jew, and you have trouble connecting to something tangible, whether it's the Beit HaMikdash, the two temples, or anything else that happened in Jewish history, or even the Holocaust, you don't want to hear from it again, about it again, right? You're tired of this whole Holocaust stuff. Because to you it sounds like empty slogans, right? I highly recommend, guys. I highly recommend it. I'm gonna post them Motzi Shabbat, like shortly after Eicha, Lamentations. There's a number, I think at least 2 or 3, maybe even 4 documentaries, amazing documentaries about this, what they call in Israel the hitnatkut, the disengagement. They folks, you understand, my friend Frank was saying yesterday that Israel was being run by demons, right? There are demons that, some of the people who run Israel, even today, are demons, right? So they come up with these sterile, legalistic terms. The disengagement, not the expulsion, right? You know how we had an expulsion of the Jews from Spain? Has v'shalom, the Jews should expel their own people, but they did. Right? It can only be the non-Jews that expelled Jews from all these, European countries, right, or wherever, right? Folks, it was an expulsion. It wasn't a disengagement. A disengagement was what happens when you're engaged to be married and you disengage or you're unengaged, right? Folks, this was just a straight up expulsion, like a ripping, really, right? So there are documentaries, my friends, and you see in these documentaries, without giving away too much, just the most painful scenes. Young Jews being sent to this beautiful place called Gush Katif, which was on the beach of Gaza. Beautiful communities. Young Jewish girls standing in front of other young Jewish girls, and they're both crying. One of them is a soldier or police, military police, and the other one is just seminary girl or whatever, right? Girls who live there. Crying, praying, hugging. Folks, it's something you can read on Tisha B'Av, like the things that we read on Tisha B'Av, the afternoon. It's called Kinot, right? The different calamities over Jewish history. My friends, this is one of the things that should be included. It should be described, just like October 7th. And guys, this event led directly, it took some time, it took 18 years, right? Interesting number, right? Judaism. It took 18 years, folks, from the expulsion of the Jews from Gush Katif, over 18 years, to October 7th. And now, my friends, we are 20 years from that time, almost 2 years on in this war, which expanded to other places, right? And now there's a conversation about what to do with Gaza, my friends. We will win, right? As Dr. Zelenko used to say, we're going to win. The question is going to be, what's the body count, right? We will win. And the question is, what about the day after? My friends, anything, based on everything I just said, anything besides, apart from Jews coming back to Gaza and living in Gaza and controlling Gaza, is unthinkable. Based on everything I just said, based on Yahya Sinwar, based on Gilad Shalit, based on Delphinarium, based on Sparrow, based on this, based on that, based on rockets, based on October 7th, my friends, it's unthinkable. It's unthinkable. I can tell you guys, straight up, if the Lubavitcher Rebbe was alive today, he would literally say, you never do such a thing that was done in 2005, and if you're going to do it, and then you see all these things that happen as a result, everything I just described to you, and you have an opportunity to get it back, you must, forget about even quote-unquote halacha or religion or being, settlers or right-wing or left-wing or politics. Folks, the security of the Jewish people in Israel depends on that. No UN, no EU, no UAE, no, I don't know who else, right? Egypt forces, no PA, no acronyms at all, except for maybe IDF temporarily. Folks, that's what it comes down to. It's just that simple. With that said, guys, again, if you want to connect on this Tisha B'Av, and you want to not only connect to Tisha B'Av, but understand where we're headed, going forward, where we're supposed to be headed, I highly recommend watching these documentaries. I'll post them. I forget the names off the top of my head. Some of them are on YouTube. Some of them are on. You can find them on like Vimeo. I'm gonna look for them. I will find them, and I will post them. And very fascinating. Just another kind of preview. In one of them they show there's a speech being made by a commander who was in charge of this entire pull-out operation. Folks, who was it? None other than Aviv Kohavi, the former chief of staff of the IDF. I don't know, I think he was the chief of staff, before this Herzia Levy. the one that we had in the beginning of this war. So Aviv Kohavi was the chief of staff before him, right? My friends, these people have been, and their little minions have been around for years and years and years. And that's who's been running, our IDF via this whole Concepcia stuff. That's who's been running our political apparatus, defense apparatus, etc. My friends, this runs really, really deep. And frankly, I think the only silver lining of this entire thing that I just described to you and everything that we've been experiencing is the fact that the Jewish people finally woken up to that fact. The ones in Israel, maybe outside of Israel as well. And we have an opportunity, as I hate to quote Rahm Emanuel, right? Obama's chief of staff. Never let a crisis go to waste. My friends, never has that been more true than today. With that said, guys, if you're fasting, have a meaningful fast. I don't know if it's going to be so easy because it's very hot. It's a summer. It's very long, right? All fasts are the same, major fasts are the same length, but it just seems longer because it's later, right? Drink a lot beforehand. Eat well beforehand. Don't eat a lot of salty foods, and best advice I can give you. And Zat Hashem, we're gonna hopefully this will be the last Tisha B'Av without the Beit HaMikdash and without Mashiach, and Zat Hashem will see our loved ones very soon via the Tiyat HaMetim, resurrection of the dead. Yes, my friend, that's another thing difficult to connect to, but something we must believe in. Alright guys, Shabbat Shalom and Tzom Kal.